disinformation. It's Alex Jones.
Another misfit kid, another burned out town. I never played by the rules and I never really cared. My nasty reputation.
We are living in quite a time, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a time. I was just thinking during the break. How blessed we are that Trump got in and not Hillary Clinton. And I get really frustrated thinking that a lot of the audience may not know you are the core resistance to this and how important you are. And the fact that when you get excited and you spread the word and you take action, the globalists quake in abject fear. But when you fall asleep, they win. We have a huge announcement here. I was going to get into all the Hollywood people that are anti-gun, that improperly using firearms in movies, and the fact that, by extension, YouTube banning average citizens displaying firearms, using firearms. They've opened themselves up to total discrimination lawsuits because they let Twitch and Amazon and all these other platforms show guns being used improperly, simulated murders, real murders, you name it, billions of people watching a week, and then they want to ban thousands of pro-gun channels. That's what's being banned. And it's a monopoly action by Hollywood and the dirtbags. And it's against the gun culture. You can put up some of those articles we were showing during the break that I wanted. I wanted to print those. Maybe they're in the printer. Out of Bloomberg, out of Associated Press, about Twitch getting signed with ESPN, you name it, Amazon, where it's going to be the new sports stars, like Ready Player One, are going to be virtual reality players with billions of people watching world championships of different types of video games. That is just mind-blowing. And like I said, will you guys print me those little articles? Thank you. I'd appreciate that. That'd be great. Now, I got one of them right here. It's one of those others. Continuing looking at this, if you look at what's been going on in our country, and if you look at what's been unfolding, globalism is all about selling the nation out and about making people poor so you can control them. And it's about getting rid of real free markets because that creates diversity of wealth and diversity of action and diversity of political systems. And that's not good for big corporatists that want vertical integration and to run everything. So if I go into it, it would take 4 or 5 hours to break it all down, but they just hope you're ignorant when you hear about free market all day long. And when you hear about how Trump's trying to kill the free market. When China has a 15% corporate tax and we had a 40%, that prohibits us from having corporations based here. When we went to 15 this year, China went to 0. Trump announced a 15% tariff on their steel. To balance that, that was only one item. Not them across the board putting a 50% on us. They announced a bunch of tariffs. Well, Trump just took action. Trump to slap China with a $50 billion in tariffs over intellectual property theft. China doesn't even deny the fact that they just ignore everyone's trademark, everyone's copyright. And this isn't like where the Pepe the Frog creator says use it, and then people use it, and then years later he trademarks it and comes back and says you can't even have it on an image. This is where they go and copy the computer chips, they go and copy the boat designs, they go and copy our machines, they copy Everything that's patented, they copy Rolexes, they copy Timexes, they copy everything, as everyone knows. And half the time you open it up and it doesn't even work. That's why you go to a store and every party favor's made in China, and every toy car is made in China, and every water hose is made in China, and every water hose tip is made in China, and every shovel's made in China. Because nobody can compete with zero taxes. Nobody can compete with no regulatory controls as they pile them on us. Nobody can compete with slave labor. Not Mexico, not Honduras, not India, nobody. Because they live like kings in Mexico compared to China. Mexico on the end of poor countries is up towards the top. Look it up. Just search engine. Mexico's towards the top of best poor countries, except for getting killed. I mean, you go to most really poor countries, folks, they're real scary. You go to Venezuela, they ate all their dogs and cats 4 years ago. They're eating people now. Thousands die a week of starvation. How you like beans and rice? Every day of the week for your whole life, and maybe once a month some fish. Move to Cuba. How'd you like squid 7 days a week? Yeah, they ate the zoo animals a couple years ago. Now they're eating the people. So, Trump says, $50 billion. You want to ship the stolen crap in here, $50 billion tariff, and what's that going to make Walmart and everybody else do? They're going to turn around and start buying American-made stuff. So here's the deal. Trump's standing up for America. He's taking action for the country. He's doing what he said he'd do, what you asked him to do. And I'm not even seeing enough support for the president. I want to see people put billboards up. I want to see people with sandwich boards up. I want to see people with blimps in the sky. I want to see airplanes with Trump is delivering behind it. I want you to understand he's our champion. And they bring him down. They're bringing it all down because they're scared now and realize we're awake. And they realize they're about to lose their whole system. But on every front, Trump is delivering in royal flush grandeur. We had better be thanking God right now. He just slapped China upside the head for stealing our property.
Introduce
Borders, our sovereignty, our stock market, our jobs, our industry, our families, our military, everything. Trump is doing his dead level best from a classic, middle-of-the-road, Americana, Eisenhower, JFK style administration. You're just getting classic Americana. And the globalists that had sold this country out and thought they were God are flipping out right now. Trump has slapped China with $50 billion in tariffs over intellectual property theft. By the way, it's estimated with our $300, $400 billion a year trade deficit with China that it's even in excess of that per year. So this is going back decades. It should be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that. Unbelievable. Trump taking action in our own media that sold us out, bitching and complaining and saying he's going to destroy the economy. He's going to destroy our industry. We didn't have anything left. It's all pouring back in now. Doesn't mean they're not going to strike back. Doesn't mean it might not be too late. But they were involved in deindustrialization, post-industrial era, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. It's a plan. It's public. Trump has read it. Trump knew all this before I was ever on air. Trump's dad was a huge donor to the John Birch Society. His lawyer, Roy Cohn, was the head of the House and the Senate. He ran both of them. Un-American activities. He was McCarthy. Trump's best friend was McCarthy's power behind the throne. What does that tell you? The globalists are crapping themselves. He's the opposite of a Russian agent. That's why they're so scared. Everything he does is for the country. Everything he does is the classic default of what you do. It is just mind-blowing right now. We have a clip of the president speaking about this. Go ahead and roll it. Go ahead and roll it.
Gone. 6 million jobs at least gone. And now they're starting to come back. You see what's happening with Chrysler, with Foxconn, with so many other companies wanting to come back into the United States. But we have one particular problem, and I view them as a friend. I have tremendous respect for President Xi. We have a great relationship. They're helping us a lot in North Korea, and that's China. But we have a trade deficit, depending on the way you calculate, of $504 billion. Now, some people would say it's really $375 billion. Many different ways of looking at it, but any way you look at it, it is the largest deficit of any country in the history of our world. It's out of control. We have a tremendous intellectual property theft situation going on, which likewise is hundreds of billions of dollars, and that's on a yearly basis. I've spoken to the president. I've spoken to representatives of China. We've been dealing with it very seriously. As you know, we're renegotiating NAFTA. We'll see how that turns out. Many countries are calling to negotiate better trade deals because they don't want to have to pay the steel and aluminum tariff. So we are negotiating with various countries.
By the way, this is live.
Mr. Lighthizer.
But we
Mr.
backed
Ross.
it up on the DVR. He's still live.
We are just starting a negotiation with the European Union because they've really shut out our country to a large extent. They have barriers that they can trade with us, but we can't trade with them.
Their tariffs
They're
4
very
times
strong.
bigger than ours.
Very high tariffs. We don't. It's just not fair.
Yeah, it's not fair.
NAFTA has been a very bad deal for the United States, but we'll make it better, or we'll have to do something else. The deal we have with South Korea is a very one-sided deal. It's a deal that has to be changed. So we have a lot of things happening, but in particular with China, we're going to be doing a Section 301 trade action. It could be about $60 billion, but that's really just a fraction of what we're talking about.
Exactly.
I've been speaking with the highest Chinese representatives, including the president, and I've asked them to reduce the trade deficit immediately by $100 billion. It's a lot. So that would be anywhere from 25%, depending on the way you figure,
It's $400 billion a year.
to maybe something even more than that. But we have to do that.
Yeah.
The word that I want to use is reciprocal. When they charge 25% for a car to go in, and we charge 2% for their car to come into the United States, that's not good.
Yeah, that's right. It's over, scum.
That's how China rebuilt itself. The tremendous money that we've paid since the founding of the World Trade Organization, which has actually been a disaster for us. It's been very unfair to us.
By the way, Lloyd
The
Blankfein made a
arbitrations are
joke
very
about this
unfair.
6 months ago. He's out on his ass now.
It's been very unfair.
Like that, bitch?
And knowingly, we always have a minority, and it's not fair. So we're talking to World Trade, we're talking to NAFTA, we're talking to China, we're talking
Yeah,
to
this hate America
European
crap
Union.
is over, bitches.
And I will say every single one of them wants to negotiate. And I believe that in many cases, maybe all cases, we'll end up negotiating a deal. So we've spoken to China, and we're in the midst of a very large negotiation. We'll see where it takes us. But in the meantime, we're sending a Section 301 action. I'll be signing it right here, right now. I'd like to ask Bob Lighthizer to say a few words about the 301 and where we are in that negotiation.
Trump is an answer to prayers.
And we're doing things for this country
CNBC
that
says
should
it's a
have been
50.
done
Trump says it's a 60.
for many, many years. We've had this abuse by many other countries and groups of countries that were put together in order to take advantage of the United States.
That's right.
We don't want that to happen. We're not going to let that happen. It's probably one of the reasons I was elected, maybe one of the main reasons.
Wow.
But we're not going to let that happen.
Wow.
We have right now an $800 billion trade deficit with the world. So think of that. So let's say we have 500 to 375, but let's say we have 500 with China, but we have 800 total with the world. That would mean that China is more than half.
All right, let's stop right there. Again, he's live right now. We backed up a few minutes. We're going to come back from break and play more. I have a bunch of guests coming on about them banning guns on YouTube for the general public, but not for Hollywood and the video game companies. Announcing to counter the communist Chinese trade deficit we have of 400 to 500 billion a year, a 50 to 60 billion dollar tariff starting immediately. Let's go back to the president who is still live. We froze it when we went to break, but he's live. But this is a few minutes ago. Here it is.
Or a mirror tax. Just use the word reciprocal. If they charge us, we charge them the same thing. That's the way it's got to be. That's not the way it is. For many, many years, for many decades, it has not been that way. And I will say that I'll talk to Prime Minister Abe of Japan and others, great guy, friend of mine, and there'll be a little smile on their face. And the smile is, I can't believe we've been able to take advantage of the United States for so long. So those days are over. Ambassador Lighthizer, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. First of all, for those of you who don't know, Section 301 is a statute that gives substantial power or authority to the president to correct actions in certain circumstances where there's unfair acts, policies, or practices by our trading partners. In this case, the area
Trump's the real deal, everybody.
Technology is probably
That's why
the most
they're so
important
scared.
part of our economy. There's 44 million people who work in high technology areas. No country has as much technology-intensive industry as the United States, and technology is really the backbone of the future of the American economy. Given these problems, the president asked USTR to conduct a study. We conducted a thorough study. We had hearings. We reviewed tens of thousands of pages of documents. We talked to many, many business people.
And we found we're about to lose our dominance if we don't move now.
We concluded that, in fact, China does have a policy of forced technology transfer, of requiring licensing at less than economic value, at state capitalism, wherein they go in and buy technology in the United States in non-economic ways, and then finally of cyber theft. The result of this has been that the president has analyzed it. We have a 200-page study which we'll put out, and he has concluded that we should put in place tariffs on appropriate products. We can explain later how we concluded what products they are, that we would put investment restrictions on China with respect to high technology, and that we'll file a WTO case because one of the actions here does involve a WTO violation. This is an extremely important action.
Because Apple just announced 3 weeks ago they're moving to communist China and giving them all the keys, most of which were developed by taxpayer money at DARPA. So you have to understand, this is treason, ladies and gentlemen, by Apple. Continue.
For the future of the country, really across industries, and I would really like to thank you very much, Mr. President, for giving me the opportunity to work on it.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Unbelievable.
Secretary Ross.
Intellectual property rights are our future, and it's no accident that in June of this year, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office will issue its 10 millionth patent. 10 million patents. There's no country in the history of the world that remotely...
Hit pause, we gotta go to break. Notice all they're doing is talking the country up, and all they're doing is saying, you're not going to have giant tariffs on us, and then let's not have them on you. And that's why the media beats you over the head that we'll die. The economy will implode if you do this. That's why they do it over and over again. Because this is how they brought the country down and how they parlayed all our wealth and all our industry into this whole global order. But here we are, the American people, InfoWars, Trump, you, everybody, together right at that magic point when their world government was launching, and we were supposed to fall to take it all away from them. Almost like it was planned. That's right, my friends. You will be defeated, globalists.